Welcome to Triangle BNI. Today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. We talk each week about the digital world and how goofy and crowded and half truths and images and new and old and good and bad. And you need to be out there with a professional on your side. The folks at Oak City Tech can help you with that. You need to get your message out to your current clients and your future clients. And you need the folks at Oak City Tech to do that. If you will go to oakcitytech.com, tell them what you're looking for. I know they'll be able to help you. Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Manning. Each week on Triangle BNI, we bring you a local small business success story. If you are not familiar with BNI, it is Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here in the Triangle, Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. Each week, about 31 chapters and almost 540 members meet, and our goal is to help each other grow our businesses. And our small business success story this week is James Rippy with Riptown Photography. James, obviously a photographer. We'll get into that. He is a member of RDO5 Profits in the Park. They meet Tuesday mornings at 8:30 a.m. at Hope Community Church in Morrisville. So if you're ever in that area, want to meet some real good local small business people, that is the group. They are funny and quirky, but they pass business. James, good to have you on the show. How are you?
Good morning, Mike. It's great to be here.
Yeah, your group's a little bit like mine. I tell people my group is 60% production and 40% snark.
Yeah, we're definitely an eclectic group and
Yeah.
definitely have a lot of fun during our meetings.
Yeah, because I believe you guys are back in person or will be soon, right?
We'll be soon.
Yeah.
Last Tuesday of the month, we'll be back in person.
Okay, good. And mine is still on Zoom for a couple more weeks. And I just tell people that the chat box at my chapter meeting is interesting and active. But which you got to have fun, right? If you're going to a meeting, I want to have a little bit of fun. I don't need it at a lecture. I did enough of those in high school with fifth period biology and crap courses like that. But I don't want to offend anybody that loves the sciences, but not me, man, not me. All right, so you specialize in portrait art.
Pretty much, yep.
Yep.
And headshots and creating images for people and their businesses that, the way they want to look in a photograph as opposed to your classic, cheesy type photo. I try to go a little bit farther than that if people want it.
And one of the things we've learned, at least I've learned in BNI with the couple of photographers that I know through BNI is you can tell a story or make a statement with a photo versus 20 years ago, old guy, coat and tie, standing there trying to look like he even remotely wants to be there. And the picture's like, okay, well, we had to put a picture up, so here's our picture. But in today's day and age, man, with the background you have, the equipment you have, the thought process you go through, you're kind of telling a story with a photo, aren't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I even when I meet with clients, I ask them how they want to feel and what story they want to tell with their image. How do they want to look? Like, do you want to look, strict or stern, or do you want to look, peaceful and happy and engaging? A lot of doctors that I shoot, they want that engaging feel, so we'll do a natural background so it feels more comfortable and relaxed because it makes a patient feel a lot more comfortable going to speak to them when the image itself says they're comfortable and engaging and someone that they can talk to easily.
Yeah, they could be casually talking to one of their coworkers. They could be at home with their kids. Many different positions to put them in versus that just cold, cold headshot of,
Yeah,
you get that with no emotion, no facial expressions, nothing. But I imagine those are shoots are more fun for you finding ways to get that message across.
absolutely. Like when I talk to clients and try to get that initial concept of what they want, and then it's trying to create that. That's the fun artistic process of using my skills and talents to bring that out of them. And sometimes it takes telling a joke or something just to get them to
Yeah.
relax or get into that mood or that mindset that they want me to show. And it can be fun and very interesting to get there.
It's funny with, pictures now. I find a way to bring in my 3.5-year-old grandson, Oliver, into most stories I tell, and we get pictures from our son, his dad, and my daughter-in-law, and he's 3 and a half. That's all he knows is, hey, let's take a picture here. So that generation is going to grow up, I guess, what, 12 and under, maybe 10 and under. That's kind of, they just pose for pictures, right? They think nothing of it. Whereas people like, well, I'm 60 plus, but even probably 45, 48-year olds plus, it's like, okay, crap, let's get this over with.
I mean, even like when I was growing up, I was in that. My mother was a shutterbug, so it was photos and photos and photos all the time. My brother absolutely hated it. He never wanted to be in photos. I was intrigued by it, and that's what made me want to get on the other side of the camera. But yeah, nowadays, I mean,
Yeah.
with cell phones and Instagram and all this stuff, kids are totally used to being in front of a camera almost all the time.
Yeah, so when you say, "Hey, let's stand over here, let's do something funny and goofy," man, they got 6 options, right? They got
Oh
the
yeah,
facial, they got the hands, they got the pose, whatever, and the parents are like, okay, let me think about that for a minute," which is just not good, and you try to loosen up the parents, and you're right, with kids, if they get mom and dad laughing a little bit, that probably helps a tick, right?
yep.
Cell phone cameras. Alright, so here's what I think of cell phone cameras. When they first came out, I thought it was a bad idea because a camera in the wrong hands is a bad idea. But as people got to use them more and chronicle their life, whether it's what they were eating for dinner or their dog or whatever, a lot more good things are being done with that. But one of the things I do see is people using their cell phone camera to take their professional photo. And that's just a big no-no, isn't it?
Well, here's the thing, and it's one of the things when I've taught students in the past is that I believe it's not your equipment 100% that makes a photo great. It's your ability to use your eye and learn framing and all different little technical aspects of how to take a good photo. I mean, one of my cameras that I have is a 6 foot pinhole camera. And if you remember, like in middle school, you take a shoebox and put a little hole in it,
Mhm.
and that's how you'd make a pinhole camera. Well, this is a 6 foot long one, and it takes 10 minutes to take a picture. So as far as technology wise, it's horrible. It's ancient, but it can take an image, and I can take a good image with it because of my skill set. With digital phones now going on the other end of the spectrum, for definitely for a long time, I've had people try to ask me how to teach them how to take better photos with a cell phone, and I would originally would be like, no, don't. Things are changing now, and last night with the Super Bowl brought that to the forefront. I actually caused the group that was watching to stop and be quiet because I needed to see the commercial for the Google Pixel 6 because of their new camera technology, which balances light. So, for instance, if someone were to take a picture and there's a lot of light behind them, all you see is shadow in the front. Well, this new technology fixes that and gives them the lighting that a professional photographer like me would be bringing on site in this camera to balance that. So, unfortunately, that's not good for people like me because it's now making it more available for people to take better images with their cell phones. But it still comes down to having the technology, not technology, the skill set and understanding of how to take a good photo and using the equipment you have to make that photo what you want it to be. I mean, is it disheartening that cell phones are getting to that point? A little bit for a photographer, because then more and more people can take better photos. But then again, the world needs more and more better photos. I'd rather see better photos than garbage that I've seen out there. So, yes, should companies be using cell phones currently to do headshots and stuff? Probably not. Using a professional photographer to give you the right image where we use our skill set and our equipment to bring out that image to what their level they want is a better idea for now. But the technology is advancing to the point where maybe down the road you might see me as a professional photographer holding a cell phone up. As weird and crazy as that sounds, it is feasible.
I still think that the website is for the professional photographer session and social media because we're used to seeing, like a little bit of cropped off photo on Facebook if you're grabbing a quick shot of, hey, my kids
Mhm.
and my dog were just there, and you get 93% of the photo in the image, and you're okay with that. But man, I go back to websites because people go there for credit. There, if I just find out about you and I'm first thing I do is pull up your website, I'm looking for credibility. Does he even have one and what's on there? So I don't know if that's old school thinking, but I just still think that that's the place to put the professional shots.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like the websites are an important area where when I work with clients is explaining to them that that's where people go to look for you. I mean, people, anything you ask someone, the first thing they do is Google it. And then they go and hit the link, and that brings them to a website so they can see it. And if you don't have good images on there that represent you, you represent your business or whatever it is that you're doing on that website, it doesn't capture people's attention. It doesn't give them the real story of what you do. And if you've got garbage on there, garbage in, garbage out. That's what you're going to get.
Yeah, and I noticed that again, the generational thing, which is interesting. I'm still trying to learn some of these things, but some people I've seen that I've actually met, I asked, hey, your website, what's your address? They're like, no, you can go to my LinkedIn page or I use my Facebook page as my website. And I'm like, and again, today may not be the right way to do it, but I guess as that generation gets older and takes over, more people may just be used to using their Facebook page, right?
Yeah. I mean, I even follow people on Facebook. My kid is an amazing chef. He loves to cook, and we follow a lot of different other chefs, and most of their content is on Facebook.
Yeah.
So they can update it daily. People get notifications automatically, which are things that you don't get from a website. So it's kind of playing that game, like you said, that generational, like what works for who. And, it's just following what that trend is that's going to work best to reach out to people.
Being the creative artsy type that you photographers are that I've learned about, do you post much on Facebook as a business owner?
I do. But I'm trying to get better at it. I mean, I'm in my late 40s, and even that, I even forget all the time to post things. I'll even be with clients and be like, "Hey, don't forget before we leave, let me take a selfie with you so I can put it up on my page and talk about you and talk about your business." And then I'll be in the car on my way home and be like, "Oh, I did it again." I forgot to take a picture to put on my social media.
Yeah.
And yeah, you literally, and I know people do it. It's sometimes you need that assistant or someone to be there for you to be like, let me take a picture of you while you're doing your job and put it up for you. Because I forget.
Yeah, and my wife and I do too when we go somewhere. Well, for example, my sister was in town. I think this would have been 2 weekends ago from Atlanta, and my brother and I live here, and so we were, she was staying at my brother's house, and my wife and I went up there a couple times over the weekend. Totally forgot to get a picture of me, my brother, and sister. It's like so. I feel your pain on that. It's like, oh man. I mean, we see each other. I think that the three of us are together maybe a couple times a year, and you would think, right? If I'm remember
Mhm.
anything, right? It's a picture of, but I forget to. So you're not alone on that. Tell me there's a good story behind your last name of Rippy, that it was shortened from some 18-letter Czechoslovakian, right, surname? No?
Um, Not really. I mean, I think it's Rippo would have been one of the past things of like some king in Germany, from stuff that I've read about the name. It's from it's Germanic, obviously it's from Germany. And there's nothing really exciting about this. There's not many of us out here, as far as I know. I did meet a Rippy in Virginia. They have a fur company, I mean a clothing company called
Oh,
Rippies. And I met with the owner, and it turned out like his family, like hundreds of years ago, probably was, in the same area as my family was back then. So
how many
that's where that
yeah,
comes from.
how many Rippies are there in the New Jersey area, right?
Yeah, there's none really anymore. We're all down here now.
Yeah, we hear that Amnon's laughing because we hear this all the time. Oh yeah, like one of the guys in my chapter, Tom Adams with I Watch Security, he's got cousins and aunts and uncles that have moved down from New York. We're just hearing that all the time, which is probably why house prices will never decline in this area for the
No.
for the near future. So, So was Riptown was the name of your company a no-brainer?
Sorry. There's a long story about where Riptown comes from, but just to keep it simple and without giving the full story away, it's one I like to tell, I guess, more on a personal level. But it actually came from in college when I was going for my degree in photography, and roommates and friends of mine gave me that as a nickname, and it kind of just stuck. And so when I decided to open up the business, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go with that, and it's going to be Riptown. They were the ones that told me that the E is at the end. And I was like, and I'm like, there's an E at the end. They're like, it's silent. I was like, okay. So I just kind of ran with it, and Riptown was my nickname in college, and it kind of just traveled on to when I decided to open the business.
I like that because rule number 1 is you can't give yourself a nickname. But when your friends give you a kick-ass nickname like, "Yo, Riptown," oh, you got it made, right?
Yeah.
Are there many I've not met many people that majored in photography in college.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few of, obviously I went to school in William Patterson in New Jersey, and my degree, my original concept was for graphic design. I wanted to be the guy that was going to come up with some design that was going to make me millions of dollars, like the guy who did the Morton Salt, like, girl with the umbrella. Everyone knows that. So I figured I was going to be that next person. And I realized I hated it. So I said, I'm not going to do it. And I wound up going into the photography program. And I'm like, this is something that most people don't know. The reason why I became a photographer and really pursued it was because I failed it in college. The first time I took photography, I failed photography, and I continued because I wanted to change that grade. And the reason why I had failed it was, college, sometimes you don't pay attention to things. And
Mm.
my teacher had mentioned to me when I asked why I failed, because I had an A on the final and a B on the midterm, was when apparently if you miss class 12 times, they give you an F. So I wound up retaking the class, and from there it springboarded into a lot more opportunities when I was in college, and continued to go for my degree in it.
12 times. I thought you were gonna say, like, I missed the midterm. I didn't know you were gonna say 12.
Oh, I missed almost every class. That's pretty much what it was. And the
But still
great thing is that once they got me going in the program, once I was really doing great in the photography program, they got to the point where they allowed me not to go to class anymore. They literally just said, we're going to run it like a graduate program. You just meet with us once a week, show us the work you're doing, and make sure you're getting stuff done. And you don't have to come to class if you don't want to. And I was like, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah, very nice. Was your mom the first one to put a camera in your hands?
Very much. Yep. She was my muse growing up. She was very much the artist. She was a model herself. Back in the day, she did some modeling for, you know, newspaper ads and stuff like JC Penney's type stuff. She was a painter, a sculptor, and literally my childhood is chronicled in album upon album with dates and everything and little phrases. She pretty much was creating her version of Facebook before it even existed. And so she was taking pictures all the time. So she would give me her cameras and be like, here, take a picture, take a picture. So one of my first photos that I found in an album was from when I was about 11 years old, of a cordial glass filled with water halfway. And I climbed up over our barbecue pit. We had like a small roof, like a lean-to, or I don't know what you want to call it, a lean-to, whatever. It was a rooftop. And I climbed up there right about sunset, and the sun was going down behind the pine trees in my yard. And I took a shot of the cordial glass down at it on this black rooftop. So in the image, all you see is this beautiful cordial glass with the edges lit up. And in the water, you see the pine trees upside down and reflected in the water. And it was awesome photo. And my mom put it in the album, and it said, "My little photographer, James." And that was from when I was 11 years old. And that was the first photo that I found in an album that I actually took of, well, actually put together and created an image.
Nice. And do you still when's the last time you look back at that picture?
Oh, I have it like in my cabinet. Keep it stored away here, and I pull it out every now and then.
Does it still
But
hold
yeah,
up?
It's still pretty good. I mean, like if I saw someone take that photo, I'd be like, listen, you did a really good job on how you composed this image. So yeah, it's really
Nice.
cool.
And in the photo album she's putting together, let me guess, there's 1,000 pictures of you and your brothers is in 3 of them, right?
Yeah, my brother's not in as many as me. I was definitely the one that was jumping in front of that camera all the time.
My
So
dad and my
and
brother were the same. It's like, "Oh, geez, do I have to be in all the photos or can I just be in one?" My brother, you have to get his permission to mention him on Facebook. His my sister-in-law and my niece are on Facebook all the time, and the rule in the house is do not mention or put a picture of my brother in there unless you have his permission. So,
absolutely the same thing on my side. My brother's not even on Facebook.
yeah,
And he's just like, I don't, he's like, don't try to tag me in anything, don't put my name on anything. I'm like, okay, sure. You know, great to have a photographer as your brother, and you won't even let me use
yeah.
you in photos.
Do you get those questions occasionally? There are certain industries they're like, "James, quick question. Do you know where that's headed?" If they know you're a photographer and they just like you're at a party or somewhere like, "Hey, do you have 2 minutes?" And you know what's coming, right?
Um, Usually when I have like hear that type of phrase and someone's like, quick question, it's usually they want something extra
Mm.
and or they want to see if I can do something that we didn't talk about.
Ah,
And then
okay.
just like you know, like, oh, do you mind if we just go over here and take some photos of this? And I'm not ready for it. I'm not prepped for it. Which there's nothing set up for that. It's just they kind of feel like, oh, it's easy enough just to throw it in. And it's like
Yeah,
that's not how the game works. That's not how it works when I want to create something proper for you. And usually, if I do try at least, they'll be like, ah, you know, maybe that doesn't look as good as what we were hoping, or this doesn't work out the way that we were thinking. And I'm like, it's because you didn't plan for this. You
yeah.
didn't do it. But that does happen a lot where that's the question that's usually followed up after that.
'Cause I've had lawyers and accountants and insurance people, and they get those, "Hey, real quick." Oh, geez. Do you remember your first paid client?
Wow, that's a great question. My first paid client, it was definitely a wedding. I'm just trying to think of which wedding after I got out of college because I went into the whole wedding gig right off the bat.
Imma get to that in a minute, but go ahead
Oh
with your
boy.
answer.
Yeah. It was definitely a wedding though. I want to say, oddly enough, it might even be my buddy Bill Dara when he got married up in New Jersey. He actually owns the Casual Pint in Chapel Hill, a great little bar and beer bar and stuff. But him and his wife when they got married on the beach in South Jersey, that I believe was my first paid wedding.
What year was that?
2002 or
Okay.
one maybe.
Did you make, any
Maybe
idea how much you got paid for that?
probably only a few $100s.
Yeah.
He was friends of the family, but they threw some money at me for it. So that was, I think that was the first paid gig. Yeah.
Alright, so let's talk about weddings because 'cause I've had photographers on before, like Anthony Torres was on, Jenny Midgley's been on, and they're like, "No, no, no, I can't say no louder long enough." You're either in that world totally or you are out of that world totally, aren't you?
I mean, I can't say I'm totally out of it because I've been getting pulled back in like it's the Godfather. Like every time I'm out, they pull me back in because there's always
Yeah.
someone. It's usually a close friend, a family member, and they're like they beg and beg until I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do it. But yes, I used to shoot tons of weddings on film. On film back in the day. That's the key thing was shooting it on film. Talk about stress because you didn't know. Like at that time, you didn't know if your photos worked because you couldn't see them right away. So you're just sitting there holding, like shooting like three, four, five, tons of rolls of films. Your pockets are full of different speed films for you to change out at different times depending on the lighting setup. So the ISO speeds are right. And it's just so much. And then you wait for them to come back and hope that they come out. Luckily, knock on wood, they all did. Um, so it was just extremely stressful. And family members and
Mm.
quote unquote bridezillas and mother-in-law zillas and stuff. it was just too much. And now that we're in the digital world and I could see the work right away, people have been like, well, why did you get back into it? No, because it's still stressful. Because running the risk of ruining someone's perfect day as a photographer is just, I would hate that. I would
Yep.
absolutely hate if that had happened. And luckily to this day, every wedding that I've shot it hasn't happened. But I've seen horror stories, I've heard horror stories. It's just not worth it for me. And it doesn't do anything for me artistically for the most part. Because there's certain, it's just the way it's shot. It's not up my gig.
And for people that aren't married yet or are older, like 45 plus, they don't understand what goes into it today because now you're throwing video into it. And you usually have what, 2 photographers, maybe 1 videographer, and it's a production.
Oh yeah, it's a show and a half. I mean, I've seen and worked and talked to a lot of other photographers and videographers. I mean, even the videographer themselves, they have a show to put on. They have to create a story of this wedding in a certain way. Then you have the photographers trying to do the same thing. And if they don't work in sync, you can have a mess because then you've got videos with photographers running around in it, or you've got photos with videographers running around in it. So it's a lot of work and effort to make a wedding currently nowadays really, really impressive,
Yeah.
especially with social media.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, my wedding is on a VHS
Mhm.
tape. I don't see me showing that to anybody anytime soon unless I find a VCR to play it on. So, but nowadays everything's digital, it's immediate, it's right there, and people can throw it up there. So it's a lot of work to make it look great.
What won't you shoot?
Well, I obviously I said weddings, but I've done a few. I don't do newborns. I don't do babies. Babies are cute, and I've done it before, but it's not my thing. So pretty much weddings and babies is the majority of what I won't shoot.
Kids are hard. That's a whole nother world trying to make a 4-year-old happy. They're screaming, who knows what else is going on, and yeah. Yeah, you almost have to be yeah, a stand-up comedian, the Patience of Job, all those combined just to do 1 half-hour session, right?
Yep.
Who is Chef Marcus?
Chef Marcus, that is my son, my youngest son. He's a 12-year-old aspiring chef. And this kid, I mean, I don't think I'm ever gonna lose weight. I have intentions on it, but I don't think I'm ever gonna because he cooks amazing food and loves to do it. And I'd say it's been now 2 years since he really dug his hands into cooking, and he can cook almost any dish you can think of. He's willing to give it a shot, and he usually gets it. I mean, he made my wife and I eggs Benedict for breakfast one day and made his hand fresh made hollandaise sauce.
Ooh.
And that's hard to do because you can break the sauce easily. And he nailed it. It was delicious. The egg was perfectly runny. I mean, he holds himself to a standard. It's insane when it comes to how he cooks eggs, how he cooks steak, everything. So right now he's been trying to kick off. He's got a YouTube channel called Chef Marcus Cooks, and he's trying to take on recipes that he's never done before. And I've got to do something I don't normally do, which is video, and do the video for him for these episodes. So yeah, he's an impressive kid.
Who did he get that gene from?
Me, I'm gonna go. That's I would say comes from me and my side of the family. Like my father was a chef, his father was a chef, his brother was a chef. My mother loved to cook herself. So I always grew up around cooking and learning how to cook and learning how to make meals. So normally I'm the one that actually cooks in my house. And Marcus just kind of jumped into learning alongside of me. And just one day was like, Dad, can I cook this? And I'm like, go for it. And since that day, I love the fact that when I get home after work and I don't feel like cooking, I can literally look at my 12-year-old and say, what are we eating for dinner? And he'd be like, all right, I'm going to make shrimp Alfredo tonight or something, or this,
Alright.
I'm going to make gnocchi and stuff. And it's just like, okay, go for it. And I get to enjoy amazing meals.
Is there a chef, lineage on your wife's side of the family?
Not that I know of.
Alright.
She's an Italian family. So there's a lot of traditional stuff like how they make their sauce and stuff, and but she'll cook an amazing chicken parm, eggplant parm, and a few other dishes. But it's more on my side of the fence when it comes to cooking.
One of my favorite questions to ask and stories to hear is my question to you for this is how did you and your wife meet? And do you both tell the story the same way?
We definitely tell the story the same way. There's no way to really mess it up. Basically, we met in college because I was the art major, she was the music major, and her best friend in college introduced us at Springfest Music Fest in 1990. Was it five? I think it was 1995, and just brought me up to this girl sitting at a tree, and I fell in love with her the second I met her.
And where was the first date?
The first date was to see the movie Mars Attacks.
Jeez. Who put that on that high on the list? Come on.
I mean, it just spoke volumes to where we were going to be moving in the future as far as us being geeks, and then to not the normal quote unquote stuff. Like, we didn't go to see a rom-com or something. We went and saw Mars Attacks, and it was just great. We had a blast and loved it.
And how quick were you married after that great first date?
We dated for a year, and that's a year after I asked her to date me, to start dating. I asked her to marry me, and then we were engaged for 2 years, and then got married in 2000.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. That's for 2 years you made her wait for you, huh?
Yeah, we wanted to finish up college and everything,
Okay.
and take care of that afterwards. So
I forget you're young, so my bad on the math there. I have to do on the fly.
been together. I mean, what it's 20, so since we started dating, we've been together like 24 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. As a New Jersey guy, can you be Springsteen and Bon Jovi, or do you have to be one or the other? How does that work?
You can definitely be both.
Okay.
You can love the boss and you can love Bon Jovi. It's Jersey. You can love
Yep.
it.
Who have you seen the most?
That's a good question. I think Bon Jovi, because my wife is hardcore Bon Jovi fan, and she loves Bruce too. We've seen Bruce, but I think we've seen Bon Jovi more times.
How many?
Probably at least 7 or 8 times.
Okay.
Yep.
And Jets, Mets, Giants. How do we?
New Jersey Devils.
Yeah. How do we follow? Okay. Well, that's a given. But with the NFL and baseball,
that's it.
Okay.
That's it. I'm a hockey fan and pretty much not into anything else really. My wife is a Giants fan.
Okay.
But it was also kind of with my upbringing, having an older brother who's 5 years older. My parents thought it was a good idea to pit us against each other. So he was a Yankees fan. They tried to make me a Mets fan. Yeah. He was a Giants fan. They tried to make me a Jets fan. And I was like, we have enough strife as it is as brothers. I don't need more. So I really concentrated on the part that we both agreed on, because we both like the New Jersey Devils.
Do or does your dad and your brother do they hold creative jobs? Like I see you and your mom, I get the connection. What about those two?
My father, he was an IT guy. He literally used to work in a company called Datatron Services or something. I'm blanking on the full name, but it was basically IT before IT existed. Mm-hmm. So he was working on computers and all that for companies and traveling around and fixing their stuff. So he was IT. My brother, no, he was more the sports guy. I mean, we literally grew up as polar opposites. I was the artistic type. I played I was in band. I was taking art classes, stuff like that. He was the sports jock. He was in wrestling and football. So we always have been pretty much polar opposites when it comes to that.
Is that creative type? Was it hard to meet girls?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I was pretty good at meeting the ladies. I mean, because my mother raised me to be a good gentleman, so I was always kind of that charismatic kind of kid. Just met the right girls, and obviously, meeting my wife in college. So,
did you ever cook for any of these dates prior to meeting your wife?
Prior to meeting my wife, did I cook for any of my girlfriends back in the day? I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right.
Because if anything, they had home cooked food from my mother at my house. That was about it.
There's always a couple rules, and these may sound chauvinistic, and if they do, I'm just gonna tell you I've always believed this. My wife and I have 2 boys, and before they left for college, they had to know how to do their own laundry and cook somewhat, so they
Hmm.
could at least survive, and girls would go, "Oh, he's not a total loser. He can actually do his own laundry," and made sure, all 4 of my nieces, I didn't do it personally, but that their dads did, that they knew how to change a tire. So they didn't
Yep.
have to call a guy, they change their own tire, get themselves home, and, but just if you know how to cook just a little bit, at a certain age, sometimes that comes across, yeah, your son is gonna be a massive hit if he's not already.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be bringing them in left and right because he's just gonna be like, "Sure, would you like me to make you a rolled pork loin with a nice glaze?" And it's gonna be like, "What?"
He
Yeah,
put
Chef Marcus is definitely gonna be meeting the girls.
he puts together the shopping list, and you're just happy to go get it, aren't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Did you if, doing my, uh, research correctly, did you used to own a bar in Durham?
In Chapel Hill,
Chapel
my
Hill,
family
okay.
used to run Bubba O'Malley's, which was there since 1987. We did about 30 years, and after my father passed away, shortly afterwards, we actually closed the bar down.
You had
So,
no
but
interest of carrying that on?
I did, but I really wanted to get back into doing what I love, which is the photography. I was taking pictures at the bar and stuff, but I wanted to get back to this.
Yeah.
And that was the big stepping stone, was kind of stopping everything else and going full force and saying, I'm doing this. That's what I'm doing. No time to waste on anything else. This is what I need to concentrate on.
Did your mom and dad run the bar?
My mom had passed it already before I graduated in college. My dad had moved down here in 99 and took over the bar with my brother. And then I stepped in 05 when I moved down here and ran it with my father until obviously after he passed.
Did you enjoy that at all?
Oh yeah, I definitely did because I'm a people person. I
Yes,
love to be
you
in front
are.
of people. So I just love being at the bar and all of that. So it was definitely a scene that I enjoyed.
My guess is if you wanna make fake friends, once they find out your family owns a bar, look out, right?
Oh, definitely had a lot of people coming in that were like, "Oh, I'm gonna get free beers," but
Yeah.
they found out pretty quickly
Yeah.
I wasn't that bartender.
No, no. It sometimes you look at people, they ask you to do something, it's like, "Dude, that's not the hill I'm gonna die on."
Yep.
You're when I rob a bank, you'll never see me again. That's the hill I wanna die on.
Yeah.
But no, Hoss, I ain't giving you a beer. That's not a
Yeah.
chance.
You got a
Uh,
business to run.
yeah,
And that's what you see obviously within in BNI. You get that all the time. No matter
yeah,
what the business is, someone wants something for nothing.
yeah.
And it's getting people to realize, and especially for artists like photographers, painters, sculptors, whatever, they 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 feel that even if we can do something quick and easy, like I can do a headshot and get it done in 10 minutes and have it edited and it works great, but it doesn't mean it's a little cheap or it's free. It just means that I know what I'm doing and I do it well, so you're paying for that business and that expertise, and every business deserves that respect. And it people, I think, don't realize that when they're asking for those free things, they're really disrespecting the person's business and their skills and abilities that they have using.
Yeah, because they don't realize, well, you're different because you had 4 years of college tuition that went towards that degree, towards that profession, and then, 20 years. And you're right. They're like, "Well, James, this will only take you like 30 minutes, right?" It's like, that's not the point.
Yeah, that's not the
Not
point.
not
Yep.
even close. And you want then you s and again, every now and then it's fun to play the bad guy. I'm totally fine playing the asshole role sometimes. I actually kind of enjoy it. And you wanna look at him go, "So you're gonna give me 30 minutes of your time at a reduced rate, right?" And they're like, "Well, no, I don't think I can do that." It's like, "Oh, but you expect me to." Jeez.
Bingo.
It's like,
Yep.
"Come on, people." What got you to Profits in the Park? Why that chapter?
Very interesting. Again that small world type thing because I live in Durham and Providence in the Park isn't right around the corner for me. There's closer chapters in BNI, but they had a visitors day, and our visitors day now I can say looking back, our visitors day is awesome. It's
Mhm.
huge. It's great.
I've been
It's
there,
usually a ton
yes.
of fun. And I went and I showed up, and I was definitely timid at first because I didn't know what to expect. I had no clue
Mhm.
what BNI was. And I walked in and I see these different professionals walking around. And then I saw this one guy, Adam Cecil. And I knew him because he was actually been one of my regulars at my bar since like I moved here. So I've known the guy for like 10, 15 years and went right up to him and tapped him on the back. And he gave me a big hug. And I was like, okay. I was like, so are you coming to check this place out too? And he's like, no, this is my chapter. And I was like, "Oh, cool!" So I literally at the end of the meeting, I signed my application to put it in
Nice.
because I just thought everything was just amazing about it, and to this day, still happy.
Yeah. The one thing when because you and I know each other a little bit,
Mhm.
and the first time I'd visited your chapter that you were there, I was asking Michelle, kinda going around the rooms like, "Who's this? Who's this?" And she's like, "That's James, he's our photographer. You need to ask him one day about the celebrity photos he's taken." So, give me a couple of your best stories here.
Well, I mean, one of my favorites, and I'm wearing them right now. I guess I could come up a little bit with the shirt, but that's Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca on Star Wars.
Yep.
So I got to meet him and his family in like 2010. And then a few years ago, right after my father had passed, I was not in the best headspace. And he invited me to come out to his house in Texas for a weekend.
Nice.
And I said, well, can I bring my photos my gear with me and possibly take a photo? And I did. And I spent 4 days at Chewbacca's house hanging out with him and then got to take this beautiful headshot, which is his last headshot before he passed away.
Yep.
So that was my favorite one, just because of the amount of time I got to spend with him and get to, know him even more than I already did. So that was really a cool one. Other than that, like Run DMC from
Oh,
DMC from Run DMC. He was here in Durham, and I did a headshot with him, which was one of the more challenging ones because the venue we were at, I was supposed to have a big open room, and unfortunately, they didn't give me a big open room. They gave me a room with a conference table in the middle of it, and it was about 3 feet of space on the side and a corner that I had to shove DMC. I had a friend on the other side of the table with a boom light over him to light him. My son was underneath him with a reflector, and it was just crazy. But I got an awesome headshot of him. So like, there's been a few, but those are my top two, which is DMC and Chewbacca. Then Puddles the Clown was another great one here in Raleigh. I shot him.
that's I don't have hit Puddles the Clown connected with Stern, do I? Was he
I don't.
wasn't one of the guys on Howard Stern's show. Okay.
No, no, no,
There's
no.
okay.
No.
Anyways, probably something lesser clown on that, but the name. So Chewbacca, how big was he physically? Because we know how big the costume is.
He's 7'2". Yeah,
I had no
yeah.
idea. Okay.
When I first met him, and like when I got a handshake from him, and you'll talk to anybody that knows somebody that's really big.
Mm,
When he shook my
yeah.
hand, the hand wrapped like all the way around, and you just felt like a little kid.
Yeah.
Like oh my goodness, my hand's in this huge mitt of a hand. Is amazing. And there was one time I had to help him because his legs weren't doing the best. So I had to assist him one time in going to a bathroom. Well, he was in one urinal, and it sounds funny, but he was in one urinal. I'm standing next to him in another, and I'm looking up like this, and I felt like I was a little kid in the bathroom for the first time. I was just like, this is just crazy because he was so tall and just amazing, but he was really that gentle giant.
How did you 2 meet?
At a convention in Philadelphia. I was up in Philadelphia. I was dressed up in a Darth Vader costume in a tuxedo. It was a character I created called Formal Vader. And so it was basically a
Nice.
tuxedo with a Darth Vader helmet on. And I was outside having a cigarette. He was having a cigarette, and went up and talked to him because I was also part of a group called Leia's Angels, which was raising money for a little girl that was dying of mitochondrial disease out in California. he was one of the angels as well. So they noticed the bracelet that I was wearing, and they were like, "Oh, you're an angel." I'm like, "Yeah." And I went over, and we just hit it off from there. And the weekend continued. We started just really talking, and at one point, he needed coffee, so we went and got him coffee to bring over to his booth. And when I was bringing the coffee over to him, I'm holding this coffee in my hand, wearing this Darth Vader helmet, in this tuxedo, and bringing Chewbacca this coffee. And my buddy yells out, "Hey, look, Vader's Chewie's bitch." And he starts cracking up. He lets out a Wookiee roar, laughing, and everyone around me just starts laughing. I'm in this helmet, luckily, so no one can see how red my face was, holding this coffee, just like, dear God. But it just, from that point on, him and his family have been amazing. I still talk to them to this day, help out raising money for the Peter Mayhew Foundation, which helps out tons of people medically that need assistance. So, yeah, I mean, he was the one person I never in a million years would have thought growing up seeing Star Wars when I was not even 2 years old when it came out, that I would be friends with this big Wookiee dude that I've seen on in the movies, and now I'm literally hanging out with the guy, and he was just amazing.
I figured that story was either a punchline from one of you two, or you had spilled the coffee on him. I figured it was one way or the other, just to know where it was going.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't spill the coffee on him because I was totally like blown away. My buddy decided to yell that out
Yeah.
in public.
A
So
great visual, Darth Vader in a tuxedo delivering coffee. That was good. I bet that was funny. Oh, man.
yep.
I know there's a budding young photographer watching this right now.
Okay.
What advice would you give somebody, and not necessarily young, just but whatever age, getting into the legitimate business of photography?
Getting into the legitimate business of photography. I mean, first off, the first thing I would say to anyone that's wanting to become a photographer is keep shooting. No matter what it is, keep shooting. If it's landscapes, if it's cars, if it's people, shoot, 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 and keep shooting. That's the only way you're going to get better. That's the only way you're going to find out what you really are passionate about. And if that's what you want to turn your business into, then you need to kind of hone in on that one thing that really gets you going and share it with people. And that's, I would say, it would be that first step is getting your name out there. You know, there is that point where sometimes when you're starting, you're doing gigs for free, quote unquote, to get your name out there, to get that recognition that everyone so much thinks pays bills, but doesn't. Um, but there's that initial point where you might need, but it's then having faith in yourself to start charging and start having clients pay you for what you're good at and learning from other photographers. Not always, I love watching other photographers. I learn things from other photographers. So just keep shooting, recognize what you want to do, and keep learning to that point where you can really kick your business off.
From the time you first started being a professional photographer to today, who is or was that one person you could take that photo to and they would be honest with you, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, but you knew you'd get the honest truth from them?
A very good question. I really don't know if I have a specific individual because I just enjoyed showing my work around to
Mm.
lots of people and just getting kind of that group mentality, like the group opinion. It's either people liked it or they didn't. And I think that's where like the headshots wound up being more and more of a thing that I enjoyed because more and more people are like, I love the way you made me look.
Mm.
And because I've done other stuff. I've shot cars like Amy Grettenstein from the Boone team, Real Estate by Design. Like I shot her car for because she wanted to sell it. It was her mom's car or something. And whatever website she put it on, they locked her account because they thought she was using stock photos, that they weren't real photos of the car. And I'm like, that's absolutely flattering that I did such a job that they thought it was not the real car. So like that was the thing I think that really gave me the right feedback was just talking to the people that saw my work and hearing their opinions and saying, okay, this is what I liked. And that's why the headshot thing really dialed in there, was from people saying, I love that you made me look the way I wanted to. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing that really made me feel good. Because then when someone looks at a picture and they feel good about themselves, that's awesome. And I don't like to do tons and tons of editing. I don't like to do tons of, it's very mild, very light editing that I do on photos. Just because of the fact that I feel if I can capture the person the right way in the image right off the bat, that's my goal. For them to be able to look at that photo, even in camera, and say, I love the way I look. Then I know I've done my job.
James, I've enjoyed having you on the show. I always like to look for firsts, and I believe this is the first Wookiee story we've had on the show in 152 episodes. So always love first. It's a great story, though. I know, again, when you said, I can't believe if you'd have told me years ago, and those are the special moments in the relationships. So folks, if you need a professional photographer, we've been putting James's phone number up here. James, what's the website they can go to?
www.riptowne.com. So the Ripptowne.
And the E is silent, we learned today. Another good story, though. But so if you need it, folks, you got to have somewhere, you have to have professional headshot and photos. Not everywhere, but there's always one place you have to have it. So go reach out to James. He'll take good care of you. And James, we've enjoyed having you on the show. Good luck in 2022, and can't wait to hear some updates on Chef Marcus.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure.
And we'll see everybody next time on Triangle BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.